I'm delighted to introduce you to our Nutrilite brand, and as well as our latest product innovation that is called Balance Within. So Nutrilite has been in a position of science serving nature for 80 years and going. Nutrilite is the only global vitamin and dietary supplement brand to grow, harvest, and process plants on our own organic farms. And the rigors and the quality and the science behind Nutrilite products is one of the reasons we are now the world's #1 selling vitamins and dietary supplement brand. On the left, you'll see a picture of our founder, Carl Renborg. Carl was really way ahead of his time. He spent some time in China during the late teens and the 1920s. And he made some observations that spurred his just lifelong effort to learn and practice good nutrition as preventive medicine. And what he observed was that, and this is going to sound a little counterintuitive for where we are today, but what he observed was that the urban dwelling Chinese citizens suffered from terrible malnutrition, something that wasn't seen as much in the poor rural Chinese citizens. And so this really was the start of his effort to link science and nature and plant foods to overall health and well-being. And so Nutrilite is very well regarded in terms of transparency and traceability. We have 6,000 acres of certified organic farmland in Mexico, Brazil, and the United States. And there are more than 800 scientists, researchers, and technical professionals, of which I am one, that devote our sole path to support Nutrilite and our principles. Nutrilite has developed a 9-step traceability standard. It was first developed for our plant and botanical ingredients, but we've since applied it to things that aren't plants, for example, lactic acid bacteria. And we can't grow everything on our organic farms. And so therefore we created an exclusive agricultural certification program called NutriCert for those farms and suppliers that we partner with on plant botanicals. We do more than 500,000 quality checks each year on ingredients and products. And I want you to remember that number, because I'm going to come back to it later with a real example of some of this that took place during the development of Balance Within. We also conduct more than 30,000 quality checks on our packaging each year. And I'll be able to provide you with another example of this that happened during the development of Balance Within. So that brings me to our product. This is our latest innovation to support our Nutrilite brand, Balance Within. Invisible support for your immune system. And, we all have people in our lives that, are our cheerleaders, our supporters, and we don't have to see those people each day to know that they are giving us support and love and concern. And I want you to kind of think of that think of Balance Within in a similar manner. Balance Within is providing nutrients that form an extra layer of foundational gut nutrition. And it's like your invisible supporters in your gut. You're not going to see them, but they're working, and we have the science to back that up. So a few facts about your digestive system. For example, it's huge. And so what we try to do then is understand it. There's a lot going on in our gut. In elementary school, we learned that the entire digestive system, from your mouth to all the way through and out, is actually your gut. But that term has sort of been co-opted by the popular press to mean the area of your intestines. And that's okay, because there's a lot going on there. And there's a lot of surface area for these things to go on, because your gut measures, anywhere from 7 to 8 meters. And, further to the absorptive capacity and the functional capacity, there are little folds that occur throughout our gut. And so if those were laid flat, they would be larger. You would have occupied the space of a tennis court. I mean, that's a lot. And we have this community that also lives within our gut, living microorganisms that can account for as much as a kilogram of your overall body weight. There are actually more live microorganisms in your gut than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy, for example. And so with our gut and having, a good gut health, the key is to achieve balance between the good bacteria and its activities versus the bad bacteria that are naturally part of our gut. And it's very important that our gut has both good and bad bacteria. 70% of our immune system is actually in our gut. And so the gut teaches your immune system how to behave. It shows your immune system, who the good guys are. And it says, its message is like, hey, these are our friends. Don't attack them. Don't overreact to them. And it also shows them bad bacteria and says, okay, it's okay to have a few of these guys around, but we can't let their numbers get out of control. We'll have to be aggressive if they start to tip the scales toward bad bacteria. The balance should always be a predominance of good bacteria. As I said, 70% of your immune system is in your gut, but that's not all your gut does. Another really important thing that is related to our gut is that it plays a role in how we feel. Our gut is called our second brain. And it's called that because it has its own immune system. And the gut, your second brain, actually communicates, with that brain in your head. Then the communication goes both ways. So it's very important that we treat our gut in such a way as to keep those lines of communication open, to keep the information flowing between our brain in our head and our second brain in our gut. So now it brings me to the product profile, and I'm going to use the product profile as a means of telling you giving you a little insight into the backstory, what happens during development. And so right away, as we were developing Balance Within, as the clinical investigator, the burden was on me. I had to complete a very exhaustive review of the science and technical information related to gut health and the role of lactic acid bacteria. And that's exactly what I did. Since 2018, I've collected more than 3,000 scientific publications in my own files. And so that's a lot. So, I did what I was supposed to do. It was important for me to do that because I was responsible for making the recommendation to our team about which lactic acid bacteria I believed had the strongest science and the levels that should be in our products, because we wanted to match those levels with the levels administered in human clinical trials, for which some benefit to the host was seen. But as we took a step back, we started to ask ourselves, what would our messaging look like? We do that for every market when we have global and even regional rollouts. And what we learned, was actually quite startling. And that is that if the product only contained lactic acid bacteria, we would be able to claim nothing about the product benefits. I mean, there's a huge body of science, but the European Union and EFSA have just really, really stringent restrictions on what can be said about products containing lactic acid bacteria. And in fact, we can't refer to them as probiotics, I'll whisper it, because EFSA has said just that word implies a benefit, and it is an impermissible claim on the product. So now we selected these strains of lactic acid bacteria. I've determined the levels, and we can't say anything. So, again, immune support was our key, was the key message we wanted around this product. So we had to understand a little more about the permissible claims that could be made for nutrients according to EFSA. And what we found was that B vitamins, when included in the product, would allow us to make that immune support claim. So that was the route we decided to go, simply because now we can at least say balance within supports immunity. So that was the technical recommendation around the lactic acid bacteria and the recommendation around the B vitamins. But if you recall, I told you I wanted you to sort of memorize or just be listening for 500,000 quality checks that we do each year. And so this became a real concern when we thought about transport of the finished good. Nutrilite ships, transports products made in California or in Michigan around the world. And the most cost-effective way to do that is by sea. But that caused us concern because we have to keep these probiotics at a sort of ambient temperature because heat will kill them. And so we became concerned about what are the conditions during transport by sea? What is happening in a shipping container? And I was even surprised by the level of information that we are willing to go for and document in order to ensure that we are delivering a product which will be viable and efficacious throughout its 18-month shelf life. And here's one example. We collect temperature data on shipping containers and their transport. So we have temperature, we place a product in a shipping container closer to the sides, and then from front to back, and collect the temperature data. But we also collect temperature data for something in a pallet, that's covered by a blanket. Something that is on the top part of the pallet versus the bottom of the pallet versus that in-between area. And all of this information became very important because we had to determine if shipping by sea was a viable transport mechanism for the product, or whether we were going to resort to shipping solely by air. So that was an important learning for me about the complexity of just one aspect of shipping and transport, and how we are able to investigate it to determine the correct means for transport to ensure that the product remains viable and efficacious throughout its shelf life. I asked you to sort of listen for another figure, and that was the 30,000 quality checks we do on packaging each year. And the packaging is also critical to maintaining viability of live microorganisms. Now, this may look like a simple run-of-the-mill stick that has a powder in it, just like anyone else's, but that's not the case at all. We evaluated both different outer paper materials, as well as the internal structure of the stick, in order to determine which film structures and which outer components ensured viability through the life of the product. This stick pack on the inside really has a sort of complex structure. It has a film layers, and the type of film became very important in ensuring that even after the lactic acid bacteria are put into the stick pack, that that the structure of the stick pack sort of shields the live bacteria from any sort of insults to which they could be exposed over the life of the product. So the film actually, and I'm gonna open this pack and sort of show you. If you look, you can see that's a stretchy film. The stretchiness that quality is the result of the heat that's applied just in making the stick pack, and that stretchiness is what's needed, because when the film structure has that stretchiness, the film is able to maybe form a little protective barrier around dust particles or air pockets, or even moisture that are just routine variables that you see during product development. So those are two real examples of how important and how far we go to address quality as throughout the development process. So what are the benefits of Nutrilite Balance Within? Now that we have included the vitamins, we can say that Balance Within supports your immune function. It supports the normal functioning of the immune system, which is really important for gut health. But these are also feel-good vitamins that contribute to a positive mood, and that's because vitamin B6 contributes to normal functioning of your nervous system. And by that, we mean the nervous system in your gut, as well as your nervous system, in your regular nervous system, your central nervous system. And so providing the right nutrients enables those lines of communication to stay open, and for them to normally communicate with one another. Vitamin B6 and B9 are also important for managing feelings of tiredness and fatigue. And I think all of us these days, through challenges with circumstances and the amount of work we're doing, are familiar with the fatigue and this feeling of tiredness. And the B vitamins will help with that. And finally, it's the convenience of this stick pack. You can throw a few in your purse or backpack, so you always have one with you in case you forget to take it while you're still at home during the morning or whenever. But you'll always have one, and this is perfect for sharing. We often hear from customers that they'd like to be able to share products, and but they're challenged when it's a lot of tablets in a bottle that you have to pour out, and you can see where there could be some concerns about picking up trace contaminants, just in case your kitchen countertop isn't clean. But with this packaging, we ensure that sharing is not only possible, but it's encouraged. And it has a really sort of mild vanilla flavor, and this fast melt cooling sort of technology. And there we have, so that really makes the experience of Balance Within, the sensory aspect, something pleasant that you won't mind using every day. So I'll close with this slide, and that is to remind you that Balance Within is support for your immune system, that those invisible supporters in your gut. And it's really almost as though it's 3 products. We have the 2 strains of lactic acid bacteria at definitive levels. We have 2 B vitamins at 100% of your daily nutrient intake value that contribute to normal functioning of the immune system. It contributes to positive mood, and have this sort of ability to help you manage your feelings of tiredness and fatigue. And again, the convenience of the stick pack is all the better. They don't take up a lot of space. They can go in your purse, in your desk drawer, and you can share them.